Hello?
Mr. and Mrs. Sawyer, when was the last time you saw Gabriel?
Several years ago.
Nearly 20.
This brain image shows us a tumor. Gabriel's long-term memory stops at a certain point.
Like it's not even him.
I'm Diane Daly. I'm a music therapist.
I was hoping to talk to you about my son.
We may be able to use music as a tool to reawaken parts of his memory.
First time I heard this song, it spoke to me. All the craziness, you know, all the possibilities.
So this is like the hippie version of Memento, in a way.
Wow, that is a good way to put it. Except it's not really going backwards. It's just a guy who lost his mind and literally lost his mind. Like, you don't know where it is.
Yeah, there's not cool shit going on, like people getting killed and, you know.
Yeah, where Memento, where a guy has to solve a mystery, this guy just sits around and just listens to records.
Yeah.
Neither is the story fractured and non-linear,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's got that Memento thing, except it's not as fun to watch.
And
So,
if you're
so it's that you have no short-term memory? Is that the right?
Well, you know what's
term
funny
for
though?
it?
He's like, yeah, I guess so. He's like a serious deadhead, like one of those guys, if you know what I mean. And you know what? I thought they were all that way because I'm like, how many times can you listen to that fucking album without going, okay, this music sucks. Let's listen to something else.
Well, I just thought like he just did a lot of drugs and that was it. Because every hippie I know is just like you talk to him for a little bit and 2 minutes later like, what'd you say, man?
Well, you know what?
that's why I'm
you
like,
assume,
you never carry acid in your pocket, kids.
you assume that's the LSD, but maybe it's just listening to enough Grateful Dead that just
Well,
wipes
fuck
your
with your
memory.
mind. The reason why we're talking about this because we have a character in this movie named Gabriel, right? Is Gabriel Sawyer, and you say this is based on a true story?
Yeah. At the end of it, it said it mentioned the book that it was based on. About
Oh,
this
so did
guy.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but that doesn't necessarily make it true.
I will learn nowadays that based on a true story
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean a whole hell of a
Well,
lot.
perhaps it's inspired by a true story.
Here's a true story we just made up.
Nothing here is
enter
so
for your-
fantastical that it couldn't be.
I enter for evidence one, the perfect storm, based on a true story. How the fuck do you know?
I know. You remember that talking dog movie, cartoon Balto? They said that's based on a true story. I don't remember that dog talking.
You didn't know the real Balto.
You got me there. I never,
See?
never talked to him in life, so I'm wrong.
This
but
actual review was based on a true story.
it's based on actual bullshit is what it is. But, you know, the guy in this movie, Gabriel Sawyer, now I got in kind of late, but what I picked up is that he had a brain tumor. And that's what it says here. It says that the guy suffered a brain tumor, and therefore
No, he's right. He's right.
It's a big brain tumor.
His whole head was like a
God damn,
brain
you got Can you remember this?
Wait a minute. Ow.
Anybody got any Lionel Richie that we can play so Leon can remember the movie that we saw?
Oh man, I remember now.
I'd love to y'all be playing Lionel Richie so I can go, turn that shit off.
Leon, like what movie we talking about? The music never stops, goddamn it. No, in this movie the guy had a brain tumor, so he can't. He has very damaged short-term memory. Like really, you would talk to him about something, and he'll be very emotional about it. What happened? Oh, that guy died, or what? We went out for a while, and oh man, that's terrible. Wait a minute, who are you again?
Yeah,
It's just like,
but
you know,
short
it's
term
been-
so short that he can barely hold up a conversation for more than a few seconds.
Yeah, it is. It's extreme. Where people make a joke about it, or they would in a sketch, it would be funny. But in real life, it's real and it's frustrating for him.
I pray for that. I pray for that someday.
Yeah, well,
That guy has no problems.
I can just forget all this.
I
shit.
know.
But a bigger part of his life is that before he had the problem with his brain, he didn't get along with his father. At the time, this was in the late '60s, and so
he's protesting Vietnam.
Yeah,
his dad was I like Ike kind of dad.
His dad was a World War II veteran.
Yeah.
Dad was all American apple
Fucking
pie.
J. Jonah Jameson. That'd be tough to call.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's J.K. Simmons that plays the father, and
The guy's living like a cliche as far as any fucking dirty hippie would live. I mean, which it seems like, okay, isn't that like all their stories? I mean, there was nothing new.
Let's say it's a cliche story, but I'm sure it was going on all over America.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was
Just
one
by
of the biggest culture clashes of all time.
It's funny just because the movie, to me, it seemed to like skim over that, where they really didn't give you enough detail, but you've seen it so much in movies that you're just like, okay.
he's a I mean, he is a stereotypical hippie. I mean, but hey, they did exist.
Right.
You know,
no.
where it's like this: Dad, straight lace, button down shirt to the top, bald, all American. Son comes home, shirt open to his belly button, hair gone everywhere, burning flags, don't give a shit. And it's to the point that even they eating dinner, and the dad's like, you don't like what your mom cooked? And he's like, well, the fact that this flesh came from a living thing and we're eating it right now, it's just like, God damn.
You wanted to smack him yourself.
True.
Yeah. It's funny how much we've come back the other side now, where we're like going, really, that kid was being pretty unreasonable. And it's like, because honestly, the dad is never really totally the villain by any stretch of the imagination, nor is he totally the good guy. He is a very flawed individual himself, but partially this movie is about him coming to terms with that, of saying, you know what, the differences between me and my son, they mean nothing compared to what we have in common, which is that he is my son, I'm his father, and I totally love him, and I want us to be able to get along.
That's the backbone. That is completely the backbone of the entire film.
And in those kind of relationships, which are so commonplace, it takes something traumatic to make a person stop and reevaluate and reach that decision.
Yeah, which
reach
in
that
this case
conclusion
is him losing his mind, the son losing his mind.
Well, the son
years
disappears
later.
how long was
20
he gone?
years?
20 years. He
yeah.
just, like he ran out mad, and they just never heard from him.
Didn't
for 20
age
years.
a day. either.
Well, the father tells him, it's that classic scene of like, how dare you? No son of mine. And then the son is like, I'm out of here, man.
A twisted sister pin on your uniform.
What do you want to do with your life?
I want to rock.
Well, then rock your ass right on.
Yeah, exactly. He leaves, and 20 years later, they find this guy, mind just fucking gone. You're thinking like it's the drugs, because every other hippie is out there just like him.
The dad is just that intense, dude.
Yeah.
Looking like the Submariner from issue 4 of the Fantastic Four.
Sometimes
Just
the
throw it in
light
there
be
for you.
shining on me. Other times I can barely see.
But they bring this guy in, he's under the care of this woman, Diane Daly, who, her treatment with him, she realizes that, okay, this guy cannot remember anything. It causes him to go into a depression, and it just causes him to be very disoriented. But when she starts to play certain albums, and we're talking about this, this story takes place years later in the 80s, when she starts playing albums from that era of the late 60s, like things like Cream and, the Rolling Stones, but more importantly, the Grateful Dead.
And Bob Dylan.
And Bob Dylan,
Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club.
All the classics. You get all this and more in this movie.
Freedom rock, man.
Turn it up, man.
That's what I was laughing at. He's like, he went from being catatonic to once they start playing, he turned into spokesman for Freedom Rock. He did. Oh, I remember this song. It was the late 60s. Vietnam was just kicking up. And man, the Grateful Dead, those tunes.
Oh,
Check it out.
The girls going to jail.
I know.
All the classics are here in this institution, man.
You only wish the story was about that one hippie in that commercial. Hey man, that's Freedom Rock.
We'll turn it up, man. But this guy, when she starts playing all this music, but like I said, the Grateful Dead really brings him around. He starts to just he goes into a trance, but like a happy, euphoric trance. He's like, oh wow, man.
Yeah, he starts acting like a normal hippie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
he starts acting like Janice from the Muppets. Well, man, sure, I remember this album, man.
A hippie getting a hand job. That's what it seemed like.
1968,
Wow.
man. I remember I was in the van smoking, and he just everything is total recall from him. But once that album's taken off, he's like, well, man, that's like skirt. He's like, ribbit.
It's like somebody unplugged his power cord
I
at that
know.
point.
Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of kids out there that wish they could control their dads like that. It's like, oh man, I remember this song. Oh,
Imagine if somebody
let me tell you all about it, son.
If somebody had a marionette and they just cut the strings, that dude just fell.
Exactly.
See, but the core of the story isn't even that in and of itself. It is once again the relationship of the father and the son, because the father still does not like this music that this kid has its effect from. As far as he's concerned, this is how this happened. This is what made his son leave him in the
He
first
had it
place.
coming.
All this music is like this devil music is what did it. But when the therapist, Julia Ormond, I
Yeah,
believe,
Yeah, Julia
who's
Ormond,
the one who's
British
like,
actress,
idea this
man.
is, they come to kind of an understanding, and the father realizes, you know what? I am the one who's fucking up here. If this helps my son, then I want to be part of this world. And he goes on a crash course of listening to classic rock, and forcing himself, like literally
Oh, yeah.
practically with gritted teeth to like classic rock so that he can be the guy to be there for his son and playing it for him. And because sure enough, it looks like it is having a positive effect outside of the times when he's specifically listening.
I love the way that happened too, because the father is so stern. I mean, he's just kind of like to the point where it's like, this treatment is not working, even though it is. He's just like, you know what? If you ain't playing no Lawrence Welk, this treatment is not working. You got to get the hell on out of here. And he tries to stop it. His wife, who's played here by Kara Seymour. She tells him like, hey, look, if you want a guy to do anything, take the pussy away. Because she's like, I'm not talking to you, okay? I'm going to sleep with my son at the institution. Fuck you. And all of a sudden he's like. He's like, maybe I should change my mind.
Maybe I should listen to some of this Beatles stuff. I'm sure that's not so bad. I mean, a part of what drives a dad is that when his son was a little kid, the dad had him listen to all his old music.
See, I missed that part of the movie. I came in late.
That's what you missed in the beginning, like where his dad would like his dad had him. He would play songs like, okay, who sung this song? And the kickers like recite it and tell him like, oh, this song played the first time you met mom, and they were like, that's how they bonded.
Yeah.
So when his son moves on to his own hippie music, he feels like he's kind of hurt.
You know how you hear a song and you fall in love with it, and it may be years before you hear it again, but when you do, it instantly places you back in that moment when you first fell in love with it, as if no time had passed.
Yes. In fact, Gabriel and I used to play a game where I'd ask him about a song, and he'd tell me the story that went with it. That's why I brought that music in. That's the music we used to listen to.
Well, it's not the music he loved, or at least it's not the music that resonates with him. I don't think the piece on the radio that night was the Marseillaise. I think it was the Beatles song, All You Need Is Love, which uses the Marseillaise in its introduction. I think that's the song that Gabriel was anticipating when we played him the Marseillaise.
What happened when you played him that Beatles song?
Oh, Helen, if you could have seen him, he was totally connected. He was as you've described him, Henry. He was normal. And it wasn't just the Beatles. I actually was able to use pieces of music from that period to more specifically pinpoint the extent of his amnesia. He remembers songs vividly from 1964 to 1970. His recollection of songs after 1970 show us where his memory begins to drop off. He remembers all the founding members of the Grateful Dead from 1966, but he doesn't know that Pigpen and Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin are all dead.
I didn't know they were ever alive, and I'm no worse for wear.
Yes, but for him, these musicians are all hugely important. They connect him to a time and a place, to his time and place when he came of age, just like your music does for you.
My music was his music. He used to listen to that music as a kid, and it never upset him. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. He loved my music, too.
It's like that like, hey, man, you were my son. Now you're becoming your own person.
Yeah, and that's what's cool about the story. I mean, that's the one thing that really, like, got me was just this father. It's just him realizing after a while, like, he's like, no, my kid's not really in this. My kid loved my music, too, all right? Yeah. And when you realize that, no, he didn't, not as much as you'd think he did.
Right.
And once the father starts realizing that, I think that was the cool thing about this movie, seeing the progression of the dad slowly take this in, even though it was hurting him to the point where he would get defensive about it. But then, like, coming to the realization that, okay, this is a serious issue going on with my son. This is the only time when he hears his music, it's the only time I can talk to him.
Yeah.
And just really making him, through his wife, his almost non-existent wife, who is like the real quiet one, his wife having to tell him, look, sorry, this isn't your story. This is dealing with our son right now.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with you.
It's him acknowledging
and
that what he taught his son was, as a child, was not that these songs were great. What he taught his son was the passion for loving music.
Yeah.
In and
Yeah.
of itself, it's just that he took him that long to realize that for his son, it was different music.
And see, well, and then like the movie, it's almost like it becomes the story of the father more so than the son at that point, which really like hooked me in. That's the one positive thing I can say about this movie. Like, I think I do have an issue with the movie where like I was telling you, it seemed like a cliched, like hippie story at the beginning where, they're telling you the background of this kid, where I kind of wish that part was a little bit more meatier as far as just giving me more reason, like, to have these two at such a conflict with each other.
Oh, I thought you meant like crashing into the planet and killing the dinosaurs.
No, but just,
I'm sorry. All I kept thinking about was spaghetti and meatballs. He kept saying meteor. I'm like, man, I am kind of hungry.
Leon hungry right now.
I wanted more meat.
I might go to macaroni grill when this
I wanted
review
more
is
meat
over.
and potatoes in that story. That's all I'm saying. But I mean, which I thought that the movie really kind of needed in a way to really have like these two not really get along, to where I think it would have, even though I think the movie did its job, as far as like towards the end with with them just dealing with their relationship. I thought they were playing a little too safe for my taste.
I guess I hear what you're saying, but I just keep thinking, like, if it is indeed based on a true story, I would hate for them to pump that up just to and get away from what actually happened. I mean, it could have been, just not, somewhat mundane. Like, it's just more typical, and it wasn't sensational. But what was going on with the son, his brain healing, the bonding relationships. I guess I appreciate there weren't more histrionics to get in the way of that. And it is a simple story. I would take things away from it because it's like, hey, it's just kind of simple. But at the same time, the things I liked about it, I really liked.
Yeah, which believe me, I mean, saying that though, the last part of the film really won me over. Yeah. I mean, it did make me appreciate their relationship, and it did seem like it was a family unit that, I just know too many family units that are really fucked up.
Sure,
more so than this story could ever present. But I mean, you're right. I mean, it probably would have distracted you from the actual story of this.
Well, I mean, that's the heart of the story is the dad. J.K. Simmons does a wonderful job at
he does.
playing. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who, like, it's a story about a father who has to step up. Where most fathers would have been like, I just don't understand that boy.
Yeah,
that's why I always hurt my dad. Oh boy, I just don't understand
my dumbass son.
Yeah, my dumbass right there. No, this father like has to say, you know what? For all the differences we've had, this is my son. And I'm going to be a father no matter what. And so he has to like grit his teeth and listen to shit that he hates. Yeah. But he kind of, the thing is, it's fun to see him never admit that he likes his music. But you could tell he's beginning to enjoy it. He's still a little stubborn.
He's living vicariously through his son's absolute joy.
And
there's a point towards the end of the film where all of that kind of comes to a head, was sort of, as far as their relationship based on bonding on the music, that is, man, you get it. You totally do. You see it, even though I'm like, okay, I like the Dead, okay, but I'm no big fan. But this sequence towards the end involving a Dead song, you're like, man, now I love this song. It's so powerful in the context of the film.
And that's what the movie does to you. It's like, I do enjoy these types of movies because anytime they touch on a genre of music that I'm just not into, or just I wouldn't take the time to really listen to, and they explore people's passion with the music and what it represented, you do start to develop some kind of appreciation for it, especially at the end where I'm like, hey, I might buy a fucking Grateful Dead soundtrack, which I never thought I'd ever do.
I have problems with this movie too. And before I get into those, I'll say one of the great things about this, besides J.K. Simmons, is the music, the soundtrack. I was loving the soundtrack. I know Leon was too. I turned next to him. He had a shades on. He's like, "Yeah, man." You were tapping your toes throughout this whole film. You were loving this, man.
I was.
There's some solid tunes.
If you like that movie, I mean, if you like that music from that era, then it's
turn it up.
Yeah, turn it up, man. We've all heard it before.
And if you don't, you're fucked.
It's rare for me to hear this music where it's not part of a beer commercial.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's good to hear a part of a story. Yeah, Leon had his headband on. He was doing. I think he was doing acid next to me. All his shirt went to plaid all of a sudden, tie dye. But the other thing that I like about this film is, who we have not mentioned, is this guy Lou Taylor Pucci. I think that's how you say his name. Thumbsucker. Yeah, this kid. He's 26.
Is he only 26?
He's only 26.
Because I've seen him in a lot of stuff over the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah. And he's always playing a teenager. He has a baby face. Yeah. He really does. And to the point they put him in a movie called Thumbsucker, where he sucks his thumb. And when he does that, he looks like he's a baby. That's how much of a baby face he has. In this movie, I would bet that he chose this because he had to play an older guy. He has to play a guy in his late 30s. And pretty much all they do in this movie is cut his hair, give him a bad haircut. Big old werewolf haircut, and then let him grow a beard. And you thinking, like, you look, when I first saw that, I was like, I know this kid from other movies. I'm not convinced that and then he started to talk, and I was like, once he goes in that trance, start talking about music, I'm like, wow, this kid convinced me that he is a guy who's about 38, 39, even though he looks nothing like
it. Takes a while.
The beard does not hurt.
It takes a while because it's like, man, I've seen this guy before. Is he a fucking vampire? Because I thought I saw this guy in a movie similar to this in the 70s. But I mean, when you're like, oh, okay, his acting really lets you go through time where if they didn't give him anything to do, you'd think, like, what's this fucking teenager doing playing a 30-year-old?
He does.
Guy?
I mean, he does. If his acting wasn't so good, he would look like he's a 16-year-old who put on a fake beard and tried to act like he's 30.
And he does. He does a great performance in this role.
Yeah,
he really nails it. I mean, the only shame is that he's got to go versus J.K. Simmons, who is one of those actors. I can't believe it took him this long to be a lead role in a cinema film, because he's been in so many TV shows over the years where people are like, he's the best thing about it. Yeah. And you're like, wow, only now is he getting to head a movie like like this.
Yeah.
He's so phenomenal here, and I hope that this is, even though sadly most towns aren't going to get to even see this film.
It's such a small
It's such a
release.
small release.
Yeah, it's
I
probably
hope
only
that
playing
this
in
is-
his living room.
Yeah, exactly. I hope this is the beginning of better things and bigger things for him as an actor, because he deserves it. And shit, let's face it, he's getting old. So.
Don't worry. I think Philip Seymour Hoffman and Paul Giamatti. I think they're saving a seat for him. So yeah, he can be in that.
For the movie that you would never see film festival.
And the character.
They're going to call him up to get in the carpool so they can go audition for these movies.
Yeah.
Off to character actor Valhalla.
Showing as a triple feature with Charlie Goes Boating or whatever that movie was,
Yeah.
and Win-Win. Jack
Win-Win,
Goes Boating and Win-Win.
Win-Win.
Movies you will see on Netflix and still not watch.
Exactly.
Movies you will see the poster for, and that's it.
Yeah.
No,
But
but
you will take people's word for are good. And that should be enough.
but never see it anyway.
Yeah.
And the other thing what I did not like about this movie, and I gotta agree with you, co-host, there was some things where it was just the drama in some parts was just overdone. I mean, I've seen them before. I didn't really feel like it was adding anything to the story. You know, like
Right.
that whole thing of like, I hate you, Dad. Go to hell. Get out of my house. I'm like. Now, I'm not saying that can't be good in the movie, but the way it was presented here, by having such good actors and in the middle of such a good film, that seemed like some TV drama.
If you would have replaced them with generic actors, it would have looked completely generic. It looked like something out of a Lifetime movie.
Yeah.
actually.
I will completely agree with you guys on that. It felt like shorthand. Like,
Yeah.
like it was like the notes for, well, they should say something like this, and then nobody came back in to
yeah.
fill it in with more developed.
Whenever
dialogue.
whenever there were parts, I mean, this is supposed to be the powerful part that's the catalyst for what we see later in the story, why they are bonding, the hurdles they had to get over the bond. But I thought the parts where we were dealing with the young Gabriel and his dad, that was weak. And, you know, the other thing is, like, age in this movie. Where we're talking about, like, okay, the only time they did something good was age is when they had this kid, Lou Taylor Pucci. I hope that's his real name. I love that. Pucci. Pucci, yeah. I hope, you know, besides him being able to, like, come across, regardless of his looks as being older, everybody else was not convincing. J.K. Simmons, when he's supposed to, like, play somebody in his 40s, he still looks like he's 60.
Well, hey, the man can't help how he looks.
I know.
He puts on a toupee. What else you want?
I know they put some hair on his head and like slick it back, and it's like, no, that
Now
ain't
you
doing
know
it.
this movie didn't have a Benjamin Button budget to it.
I know. But then there was a thing with his girlfriend, who Gabriel's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Who, you know, later on in life, he's supposed to come back to her, and she's supposed to have kids, and she's a wife, and that's what makes it so tragic for him. But when that girl played his girlfriend when they were supposed to be teenagers, she looked like she was in her 30s.
Yeah, she
they
totally did.
Yeah, they should have cast Rosie O'Donnell as her in the future, so you know it'd make more sense. About,
So this movie's
Just goes,
everywhere.
holy shit! Well, I remember you didn't look like that.
I think a part of that is she had to look so much like she did when she was a teenager for him to not even recognize the fact that she looked different.
Yeah.
And like enough to go like, oh, hey, so we're going to get back together? We can go in the closet back there? No. I'm married. I have kids. Oh.
I know, it's pretty much
come on, man.
So, hey, are we going to go in the closet back there and make out?
And you got to be honest, like, who's he going to tell?
That's true.
I'm surprised she wasn't like doing the whole look around side to side thing. Like, all right, 5 minutes.
You know, during that scene, I was almost hoping that it wasn't a problem with his brain, where he was just like, "Oh, so you're married? Yeah, that sucks. Well, you want to do it?" And he's like, "No, I'm married." Oh yeah, you want to keep doing it? Let's do it.
Actually, that's what should just fake you got a brain injury. You can keep telling the girl like, "Hey, you want to fuck?" No, I'm married. Okay, I'm sorry. Want to fuck? You know, she's gonna give in after a while. At some point, you keep asking.
This head injury is a problem.
Well, the one thing I kept thinking was like, okay, hey, look, he still thinks it's the 60s. And I was like, ooh, maybe they'll do one of those things where they just try to convince him that it is still the 60s. Like everybody just conforms. And plus, around in the 80s, they were doing every year, they do a 20-year flashback. So there was a big revival of the 60s during that time period. I was like, you know, it'd be easy to find those clothes and just get that going again.
You know what? Just drop him off at any hipster bar around here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like right now, he'd fit in good.
Oh, yeah.
That's
He
more
was
of a 50s beatnik type of thing, really. It's a little early. That's a little before his time.
Well, man, I'm right back at home. You know,
Yeah, don't all those guys suffer from short-term memory?
You know, the complaints in this that I have, it's one of those small movies where it's not the best of these series of small films that we've seen and loved in the past few months, but I just, because I didn't feel like it was strong enough to like I saw it at the theater. I was like, yeah, you know, I feel like I could have watched this online at home or Netflix, and I would have probably even liked it better. You know, it's kind of as a quiet discovery. But yeah, I give it a high matinee. I still enjoyed it very much.
I'm pretty much right there with you. I mean, there's so many things I like about it, but it is, it just has its weakness in, things we brought up, maybe whether it's budget or just original story. And I felt through most of it like, wow, I'm liking this, but there's parts I could just take or leave, and some strong acting here and there. But by the end, I found it extremely touching.
Yeah, it was. It almost makes you want to cry.
Yeah. Even talking about it now, there's just those themes between father and son.
Yeah,
it's just like, man, my dad would never be that cool. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I give it a high matinee.
I think it's odd because I have an extra complaint about it that y'all haven't brought up, and I think I like it more than you guys do, regardless, even though I agree with all your points. And my complaint being that I felt like the science was more than just a little accelerated and exaggerated as far as the effect that music would have on her. Now, I know that there have been lots of studies, and there's a whole field of music therapy and all that sort of thing about how it helps, but the way this guy goes from like 0 to 60 as far as lucidity goes, the moment they play a song he likes, I was like, I'm pretty sure it doesn't work that way like the first time.
See, I'm rolling my eyes right now looking at Cyrus. It's like, is there anything you fucking believe in? God damn it. Shit.
Yeah, because it's called science.
God damn it.
Well, Cyrus,
And I can prove it to you.
Cyrus, consider
Never taking you to the
in
carnival.
as much as they only got so much time to sell us on this.
No, I agree, but it's exaggerated to the point that it felt like you were watching science fiction. That's all. I was like, okay,
But you love science fiction.
Shut up, Leon.
He believes in Spider-Man, but he can't believe in Jesus.
Hey, if Jesus had webs coming out of his arms and were saving people, like with not just like spiritually, yeah, I'd believe.
Spider
it.
Jesus.
If he hadn't died, the webs would have shot at holes in his hand.
That's
If he
a good
took off his crown of thorns and threw it like Captain America's shield, you'd be all into it.
But he never did that. The whole time in Sunday school, I was like, throw it, dude, throw it. He'll take out all the Romans,
weapon.
it'll circle around, he'll catch it in his hand.
Be like the glaive in Cull. A Krull. What's that?
Yeah. I'm sorry, but you were saying.
Thanks a lot, Colin.
Yeah, you had a point. What was that?
It's hard to remember
Now that we've really
now.
killed you, please.
Damn, he is the co-host is your brain tumor right now.
I'm sorry to have an affection for reality, co-host. I'll try to be more imaginative in the future. But no, I give it a low full price because I think it comes around to a point where you're just so with it. It's hard to imagine not telling people, oh yeah, by all means go see this in the theater as soon as you can, especially if you can go with your dad. It's a great movie to go with your dad to go see. I mean, it is really.
And afterwards you go like, why can't you be like that?
Exactly. That'd be the only
Let me
reason.
hanging out there, you son of a
Just so
bitch.
you know, I ain't listening to that shit you listen to. I don't care what the fuck happens to you. I am not listening to Nine Inch Nails or whatever the fuck you
I would
call it.
not. I would not want Cyrus's dad to suffer through all that '80s shit he listens to, trying to relive that. It's like, I love Kajagoogoo, son. This is great. Yeah. This is awesome
That's
music.
Leon. Leon listens to
No.
me.
Don't put that
Leon's
shit
from
on
the
me.
'40s. Like, you got that ragtime music going.
I just don't know how that got attached to me. That's like out of left field. You know, it's just like, I got to find something else to hit Cyrus. Hey, you like 80s. You know what? You like crappy desserts, you asshole.
Yeah, you and your boy George.
What? Since when do I listen to that?
Yeah, you do. Wait, you just had.
I
there's
do?
Just, what was that review that came out that you and Leon did where you were praising the '80s music?
We're praising some music from the 80s.
All lies, lies on top of lies.
Leon's old. His dad would come in and be like, I'm not listening to this thing called vaudeville. Okay. The hell is this?
Tell you that Scott Joplin was happy. Gershwin Brothers. Oh man.
Man, that's nothing like the people hitting rocks with bones, man. That shit and music hasn't been the same since the caveman
What is this
days.
thing called ragtime?
Is this Right Said Fred? Oh my God! Let me tell you the story behind this. No, but anyway, yeah.
Yes, tell us the story behind Right Said Fred. I don't know.
But yeah, I like this movie. It's nice. Take your dad. Yeah. No. Yeah. I'll. You know, the thing is, the acting and just that the last half of this movie. You want to give it a full price, but like I said, there's the issue with the conflicts between the dad and son. I just didn't really buy into. So yeah, I mean, it's a solid. I mean, as far as acting and just trying to tell a really good story, it's pretty solid. But if they would have done a little bit more at that beginning, I probably would have really loved it. I really loved it. But I'm gonna give it a matinee, even though yeah, I mean, I can understand why Cyrus gave it a full price and yeah, if this is a movie you kind of want to take to your dad, just to shove it in his face and go, yeah, that's how a dad should act, you know.
I would not take my dad to this movie. My dad would come home and club me upside the head, trying to make me have a brain tumor. I wish my son would forget a lot of shit and not talk. I'd be put in an institution. Clang.
Well, maybe if you got a brain tumor, I would treat you like that. Like, go cut the yard.
Yeah. That kid up on screen is still smarter than you.
No, my dad goddamn brain tumor. All right. My dad would have bonded a pipe upside my head. Head male bonding right there, you motherfucker.
In my music, it's plain English. This is, I don't know.
The dad grew up on the road. On the road, you never really know what's gonna happen when you arrive, so you just experience the ride.
That's what that means? I lost my boy for 20 years. Now I'm 65 years old, and I need to have a conversation with my son.
I've never been to a Grateful Dead concert.
Me neither.
Got the medication.
I've got the bag.
I've got the brain tumor.